Welcome everybody to Witchfire. What's this then? So, Witchfire is a first-person action roguelite that also has some slight extraction shooter elements going on, but we'll get more into that a little bit later. Is developed and published by the Astronauts. Previous game, they made The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. You may have heard of that one. Never played that one myself, but I remember hearing good things. Now, this one is released onto the PC, no console release, and as you might see in the bottom here, it is a early access release. They have said on their website that they plan to bring it to console if the release of this goes well, and that there is a big enough demand, but for right now, expect a PC-only sort of situation for this one. So it has been in early access for about a year now, about September last year or so. You may be asking, like, why do a video on it now? And that is because it was on the Epic Game Store for its first year of early access, and honestly, I just had no idea it existed. And then by the time I did, I seen that it was coming to Steam soon, and thought, you know what, may as well wait till then. They have a release plan of late next year, so got about another full year of development and early access before this thing officially hits 1.0. I would say that this game is looking really good for only being in early access for about a year or so. But before we get into why that is, let's just go ahead and run through the settings menu here just so you can see what it has to offer. Now, obviously, early access, so stuff is going to come later, such as, languages and stuff, so they don't have English. If we go into the video section, however, there is quite a lot to like here. You've got your typical window mode there, aspect ratio, resolution stuff. General, you got your brightness slider, FOV. We love to see an FOV slider, especially when you're playing a first-person game. VSync, set FPS limits, always good. Reflex, and you got your upscale types, just if you're struggling to run it and stuff, so always good to see. For your actual main graphic settings here, there's a lot to like. And there's one in here that I particularly am a big fan of, and that is anti-aliasing, giving me the option of FXAA, because I don't know if many people are like me, but I hate baked-in TAA. Just makes everything look really blurry in my opinion, and I do not like it, so I'll always take the option to go with FXAA, because I think that's better than off, but not as blurry as TAA. Which I really, like I said, do not like at all. But yeah, there's some great stuff in here. Pretty much everything you could want to change is in here, and for a game that's been in, that is in early access, you could get away with a lot less. So it's good to see that this is all here. Jumping over to audio, yeah, pretty much everything you'd want to see is there. You can change pretty much every individual aspect. It's all good. We head over into gameplay. Yeah, I mean, you've got a very customizable HUD here. Pretty much anything you do or don't want to see, you can turn off and on, which is always nice because, some people like to play with maybe a bit more of an immersive experience and just turn everything off, or maybe just keep health bars on, or, damage numbers. That's always one for me. There's certain games I play and just damage numbers really take me out of it if I feel like they just don't belong. I haven't felt that way in this game, but, if I did, I'd be very happy that this setting is here. And then you also have, enemy visibility boosts and screen effects and stuff. Screen effects are always good, just in case anything gets too crazy, because there's quite a lot of particle effects in this game, so being able to turn stuff like this down or even off is always good. And then in controls, you've got aim, toggle and hold, crouch action, toggle and hold. And you can remap pretty much everything, which is very nice. Even setting customizable dash modes, which is very cool. Like these settings for this game just show a developer who knows what people like to see, and it's being accompanying to as big a variety as a player base as possible. So always good, always good. Now, the premise for this game, as you might see, we've got a very edgy looking individual in a skull mask here, so what's that all about? So the premise of this game is that it's the remnants of humanity, and they're fighting witches. And you play as a witch hunter, or, as they're known in this game, prayers. That's Preyers. And apparently they're the only ones who can really fight witches. Everyone else, I guess, can't do it. And the game kind of starts off with the idea that something was found, or we've heard wind of an artifact or a thing that will help us in our war against the witches, and you have been sent to get it, essentially. So that's kind of where the game starts off. It's a pretty, it's a pretty good little setup and premise to start your game like this. And this isn't really the sort of game where you need like a really heavy-handed story or anything, and it's not what you're gonna get. This game has very much little tidbits of story here and there if you're looking for them. If you just don't want to pay attention to the story at all, like, you can just absolutely do that. So let's jump right on into here. You can see I'm level 13. Been playing for about 5 hours, 6 hours or so, according to Steam. Always hard to tell how accurate that is, though. But yeah, this is little hub. Any good roguelite or roguelike game's gonna have a nice little hub. And there is plenty to do here, plenty to do. If you like your progression systems, you're gonna love this game. But I just want to show you first that it does have a little basic tutorial area, this little spot in here, so when you're just learning the game, you come on in here, and it'll just run you through some of the game's mechanics. Now, it's a really basic tutorial, but it does the job. I imagine that's one of those things that, it's not hugely important to make this tutorial big and flashy, it's just make it serviceable. And then, later on, once they've had time to flesh it out, maybe they will do that. And then on up here, in here, little area where you can grab your potions, brew your potions and stuff, because you'll be going into missions with whatever potions you bring with you. It's not a set amount. Up here, this is where the main bulk of the customization goes on and the progression. So if I show you this here, this is your leveling up. So you'll see in the bottom left I have this sort of currency down here. You'll level up each stat and they all do different things, like max health goes up, how much you heal when you heal goes up, endurance for your dashing around, stamina, which is very important in this game, very important, especially as the game gets harder. Witchery, spell recharge speed, how much Witchfire, that's the currency. This is like when you would get that Witchfire, it's how much you would get. This is the enhances. And luck is just drop rate of like certain things, because some things are like essential to progression that can only be dropped from enemies by chance. Or at least that I've seen so far. There may be other methods of getting them, but I'm not 100% sure yet. So you have equip gear, so this is like your loadout, so you pick stuff that you want to have before you go in. So you see you got 3 weapon slots, 2 are interchangeable between any weapons you want, and your third one is your demonic weapon. Now, your demonic weapon is like your oh shit button weapon. You get very low ammo for it, but they're very powerful. And you also have 2 spell slots, a light spell and a heavy spell. Now they use the same button, which can be a little bit weird. So you would do a single tap for the light spell and hold for the heavy spell. So far it hasn't been much of an issue, but 2 different spells on one button, you can see how it could go a little bit weird there. And then you have like things like relic, fetish, ring. These are just sort of passives. You can see here, whenever I reload, I actually release a shockwave that knocks back enemies, or this one that prevents fatal damage once per run. Rings, I don't have any of those yet, but that actually leads me into this mirror. And here you can set things to research. So if you want a new long-range weapon, you would start the research time, and over time, as you're going through runs, this would steadily progress, and then you would get your new weapon. And it is random which long-range weapon you get, but it's a cool little system to sort of be like, you know what, this is the next thing I want. It takes out some of that randomness, but still keeps the joy of discovery there, which I think this is a pretty good system, honestly. It does cost gold, to actually start the research, and you can also use gold to speed up the research. Gold being one of those things that, whenever I said there was a slight extraction element to this game, that would be one of those parts. You find valuables out in the runs, and if you want that gold, you gotta come back with it alive. If you die with that gold on you, then you don't get that gold. And then over here, we got enhance. So enhancing, that is your weapons. See if I can show you here. You'll see that my weapon has like a 1, 2, and a 3, or in this weapon's case, just 1 and 2. So if you do the prerequisite, you can then upgrade your weapon, and then it will gain permanent effects, like all the time. These never go away. So you can see the likes of this all-seeing eye. Increases damage against enemies with more than 75% HP. So that's just a permanent effect I have on this weapon now. Now, the more you level up the weapon, the more it will cost to level it up. It doesn't really cost any of the gold. It's mostly kill enemies in a certain way, maybe, or just kill them in general. But then there's also these things like second Mysterium actions, third Mysterium incantations. These are things that are like dropped from enemies by chance. So you may kill an elite enemy and get one of those and be like, oh, I can, you know, as long as I hit the kills, then I can upgrade that. Over here, now this screen very much relates to the per run progression, because you kind of have your hub progression and then you have your per run progression. And this gives you influence over the per run progression. So I have one prophecy here, and what this means, so it goes from top to bottom. So you'll get an upgrade and it'll be on this row here, and you'll get a choice of 3 and you'll pick one. But it's random. The left part here determines what type of upgrade it's going to be, and that's random in the run unless you have something in here, like this one, Prophecy of Firearms. So I am guaranteed, when I get the last upgrade in a run, it's going to be weapon related. And then it also has, as you can see there, Profound Omen of the Moonflower, that it will have things that change how it works inside that again. So there's plenty to mess around with here. A lot of progression, a lot of options, and I feel like the options are just steered enough that it takes out some of that roguelite, like, you know, maybe you go a few runs and all the things you're getting aren't really interesting to you or something like that, and you're a bit, you know, disheartened because, you know, you want this specific new thing, like I want a new close range weapon. Well, this system kind of takes that out, which I quite like, to an extent anyway. Let's see if there's anything else I need to show you here. This, I don't actually know what this is yet. This is the most recent thing I've just got. But you need to pay a little bit of your currency and then also collect these prayer echoes in runs, and then you will then unlock something. I'm not 100% sure what this is yet. This is sort of my next big progression thing, but even then, you know, I'm still progressing areas of the game that I don't even know what they do yet, so there's, like I said, plenty going on. And then there's one last bit of progression that I just want to point out here that's in this little secret hideaway, I guess. And that's this book here. And it's Gnosis, or Gnosis, or however you pronounce it. This is like your main gated progression. This is how the game determines when to up the difficulty, when to unlock new gameplay aspects in the runs themselves. So you'll find things out in the levels that are like, you need Gnosis level 1 to get this, or you need Gnosis level 2 to get this. So you would do that here. And sometimes it'll just be like, carry this amount of Witchfire in total on you at one person as like a little currency check, I guess. Doesn't actually take it from you, it just wants to know if you can get that amount. Also pay a bit of gold. This one here, I need to unlock all arrival portals in a castle, kill a faithful in the castle, and you don't even need to do all of them. This one just says do at least 3. So I like the option there as well. If there's a few things you're like, I don't really like doing that, so I can just skip that one and do the other ones. So that's nice. But yeah, I really do like the progression in this. It was quite... It's like simple, but also in depth. You know, there's a lot to like in it. So let's actually jump into a run. Also, you can slide. We always love sliding. So, new expedition. There's a few areas here. Island of the Damned is the starting one, Scarlet Coast is the next one I got, and then Irongate Castle, I've only actually gone here once, and then there's also the Witch Mountain, which I know nothing about. And then there's a couple of unknown areas, which you can see in the bottom there has a little EA symbol, so it's just not in the game yet. But we'll jump into the starting area, Island of the Damned, and this can actually show one of my main gripes with this game. But here we are in the starting area. It's a very nice looking game, isn't it? I was quite surprised to find out that this is running in Unreal Engine 4 and not 5. I kind of expected anyone running in Unreal these days to just be jumping straight on the 5 bandwagon, but I'm actually quite glad to see them using 4, because obviously with 5 there's a few teething problems it seems with PC games these days, such as like micro stutter and stuff. Not all of them obviously, but it seems like enough of them to where you almost expect it. But yeah, essentially my main gripe with this level in particular is that it's just a bit bland. It's just a bit boring. And the first couple of hours that I played of this game, I was not feeling it, because this was the level I had access to. And I just don't think this level does a great showcase of what you can really expect from this game. But let's get into a bit of combat, and maybe I can explain why a bit later. The shooting in this game is top tier. It has absolutely no right feeling this good for a studio that it seems like this is their first time making a gun to shoot in any of their games. But it feels damn good to do. If anyone has played Destiny, then you can kind of get the feel of it probably just by watching, because it does feel very similar to Destiny. But the headshots feel good, the movement feels good, shooting the guns are just nice and responsive, all the animations are absolutely great. It's just very satisfying to shoot things. So as you can see here, this crystal dropped. This is your main form of in-run progression. So as, I'll just show you on the map here actually. So you'll see on the map there's these little skulls. These are each of your encounter areas, and when you clear those, you get a manifestation, which is this crystal. So you absorb it, and here's, like I was showing earlier, this sort of upgrade table here, I guess. So you can see on the left, the one I got is tied to spells. So there's 3 options, but you only get to see 2 of them by default. So you can see here I've got casting a spell grants a short moment of immunity to enemy attacks, and faster light spell recharge. Now I'm not going hugely into spells at the minute, so this upgrade isn't the best for me, which is where that whole system of being able to manipulate what kind of upgrade you want comes into play. But I suppose for now we'll just go with faster light spell recharge. But you'll notice this one here has a feather. Now you can unveil this if you have 2 white raven feathers. Now those are found during runs, or you can buy them. There's like a little shop back at the hub. And once you have those, you can unveil this. So if these 2 aren't to your liking like at all, you can unveil this one, spend that currency, and be like, hey, maybe this one will be good for me. Yeah, so now our light spell recharges faster, which is this little burst of fire. And then I got another one over here because I cleared 2 of the sort of encounter zones pretty quickly because they're quite close to each other. And we'll go with more stamina. More stamina is always good. There's a guy here to quickly take out. Yeah, sometimes the enemies, like, they'll drop stuff like ammo, because it is quite easy to run out of ammo on the harder levels. Not so much on this level now. There's not too many enemies. But one of the big reasons that I was saying this level just doesn't really do a good job is that it's quite sparse on the encounter zones, like how far away they are from each other sometimes. Because it is like, these sort of things are randomized, like exactly where this encounter zone is going to slightly change, and how hard it is going to slightly change. Like you'll see this skull here is an extremely dangerous area, so it has way more enemies. And sometimes that'll change its location and stuff. But I just think they made the number of enemies for this starting area just a little bit low, and it can come off as this map feeling quite bland. And like I said, the first couple of hours that I was playing this, I was tempted to drop it because I just was like, yeah, the shooting great, and I hadn't seen much of the progression systems yet, so I didn't know what to think about that just at the moment. And I was getting into fights that had like 4 enemies in them, and they were dying really fast, and like it was just a little bit boring, honestly. But I'm glad I kept with it because the later levels, and now especially that I have upgraded the progression a few times to up the difficulty, it is a lot more interesting. Like even this map, that you're like even this one now that I said is boring when I first started, it's a little bit more interesting than it was when I first played because, like I said, I've progressed that difficulty. So there are going to be harder enemies spawning and more enemies spawning and all sorts. Alright, what have we got here? Sorry, I just had to cough a little bit. 2 critical hits in a row conjure an extra bullet in the magazine. Dashing partially reloads the equipment. That's pretty good, reload dash. Let's see how much that gives. 2 bullets for the revolver, that's not bad at all. So this is part of the extraction element here. You will find portals on the map. You can see this one here. And then, oh, that's the only one. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes 3, you know, they can be a little bit different every time. And they won't open right away. They usually have like a little timer on them or something. Clear out the area and you can escape. Sometimes they will be guarded, so escaping might not be a simple idea. But say I came into this level, found a few valuables, and maybe I was on 1 HP, I was getting beat up. Then I could escape with that and then still progress back at the hub, you know. Now, if you were to die in a run, it's not the end of the world. Like, you don't lose absolutely everything you had on you. You will be able to retrieve your, like... I don't know what it is they call it, I guess, but it's very much the Dark Souls. When you die, you could come back and get your souls if you don't die again, sort of thing. Like, see, enemies are starting to actually come from a bunch of different locations. See, before, whenever I was doing this level, like, this enemy just wouldn't have existed. These enemies just wouldn't have existed, and it would have just been a few enemies, and, you know, would have killed them and been on my way. But now there's actually quite a variety and quite a density of enemies, which is really good to see. I mean, let's bring out the demonic weapon, which is a crossbow that you shoot an enemy with it, and then the bolt goes and finds other enemies. Like, it's pretty sick, to be honest. And this is only one demonic weapon. I don't know how many weapons there are in the game. I think they might outline that on their website, you know, how much they have right now, how much they want to have by the time of the full release, that kind of stuff. You'll notice as well that whenever I dashed, sometimes this red thing appears next to them. And what that is a really cool little mechanic they've got here. I'll show you. There's an enemy over here. If I dash, although it doesn't seem to appear all the time, I don't really know what that is, if that's a bug, or if there's something I'm not doing right. This guy's actually kicking my ass. This is like one of the first enemy types I died to, because these guys are quite different than anyone else. But I'll see if I can find another enemy to show you that. But basically what it is you dash out of the way, and then the orb appears next to them, you shoot it, and it stuns the enemy. Because this game can get very fast-paced as the difficulty goes up. Get that, because I actually don't have any health healing vials, because I forgot to make some. So, a little bit unfortunate that, but see if we can get an enemy to drop one. I haven't showed you the heavy spell actually yet. Let me see if I can show you that, because it's pretty cool. A heavy spell puts a bell down, like a big ethereal bell that stuns all the enemies in the AoE, and on a timer, it comes back and you can shoot it again to re-stun enemies. Like, stylistically, this game just has a lot going for it, you know? Like, it really... That dark fantasy, like, witch hunter and witches aesthetic is portrayed very well here. I have no real complaints in that regard. That sort of goes away after a while. So you can kind of see how the in-run progression's going. I have a bunch of upgrades and stuff, and certain levels they'll have different sort of, say puzzles, but they'll have different things going on, where this place up in here, this is like the main attraction of this level, what you're trying to figure out. Each level will have something you're trying to do in it, and you might not be able to do it right away. Like the first time you launch up this game, you will not be able to figure out this level. Which is quite cool. It means that coming back to these earlier levels is actually important, and it adds a lot of replayability, which in roguelites is essential in my eyes. You have these little chunks of Witchfire. They act as like bankable currency, like that goes into my inventory here, so I can use these and gain 1600 Witchfire, for example. But yeah, let me sort of see if I can show you what's inside here. Actually, if I remember right, a load of enemies will spawn as I try to get in here. Or maybe not, actually, now that this door's open. When you come here for the first time, this door will be closed and you'll have to figure out how to get in. But this is like the puzzle of the first area. And I still haven't quite figured it out myself yet. And there was also a few other things. Let's see if I can remember where it is, but there's a few areas that you need that Gnosis thing I was pointing out earlier that you can't access. Like you'll see this little, like, you'll see some engravings on a wall, and you'll go up to it and it'll be like, oh, you don't have Gnosis, what do you think you're doing? And I was expecting, like, okay, once I get Gnosis, I'll open that up, and maybe what's going to be in there is maybe a large chunk of currency. This is it here. So I opened this up, and you walk in here, and you're thinking, what could this be? This is quite elaborate, and you see in the top left, like, kill Vault Guardians before the time runs out, and it's a whole area down here. I'm not gonna go through it here, because it's a whole thing, and I want to let you sort of see that for yourself, but, like, what I thought was gonna be just a random little bank of currency turned out to this whole other aspect of this level that's almost as big as the level itself. Like, the exploration really is interesting, and I think that's very important, especially for the roguelites, and especially on replaying the same levels and stuff, you know. Like, it'd be quite easy just to have this level be, yeah, you get through it and you're done and on to the next sort of thing, but open this up here. But yeah, it means that you can come back through these levels a lot and still have a pretty fresh experience, especially, there isn't any here, but there's a new gameplay element I found when I got to the third level I'd unlocked, and then I came back here for another go at this area, and that new gameplay element now existed here, which is very cool. So later stuff is now also influencing earlier stuff, and yeah, I just have to say I really enjoy what they have going on here. But let me see, is there anything else? Audio design, everything's pretty grand there, you know, just everything sounds good, abilities sound good, weapons sound good. Weapons sound nice and punchy. Like I said, just really impressive that this is this development studio's first go around at a first-person shooter. From what I understand, Vanishing of Ethan Carter was a first-person game, but I don't think it had any shooting whatsoever. Let's see if I can show you this. There's that red thing there. So that now stuns him, makes him an easier shot, because you do get some very mobile enemies. The enemy variety is very good as well, especially for being early access. That's like one of those things that you might expect is like, oh yeah, you know, later we'll add the enemy variety. Right now, you know, there's not much, but in this, no, there is quite a lot to like, quite a lot. Get that upgrade there. And the levels do look gorgeous. As much as I was saying about this level and how it was a little bit bland the first time I played it, it is an absolutely gorgeous level. Like, look at that big ship crashed over there. That looks amazing. The big tower, like, sitting up there and stuff. Like, the dark fantasy sort of gothic look really is quite well realized here. As you can see, there's some demonic ammo. So there's these ammo chests on the level that fully top up your ammo when you get to them. And they are on the map. You can see those, like this, for example. Yeah, that's that might be about it. All I really want to show off for right now. But this game is really impressing me. Obviously it's early access, so everything I talk about should be taken with a grain of salt, because things could change, things could get better, things could get worse. Like, who knows? We've seen that happen before with early access, so it's one of those things that's just always important to keep in mind. Oh, and a little thing as well that I nearly forgot about is they have an unstuck button, which is just nice. It's whenever devs realize, you know, they may have some issues with their development process, and they just add a quick fix to it until they get it properly sorted out, rather than just let it ride, because it is quite easy to get stuck in this, just on the terrain randomly, especially around trees or like rocks and stuff. I've had that happen quite often already. Like, you'll just be walking next to a tree and... Ow. Like, look at that. It's just so satisfying to shoot people in this game. And all the different weapon types so far have all been great. Like, I haven't found a weapon type that I've thought, like, you know, ooh, that's the real weak part of the weapons or anything like that. Like, I've used a shotgun, an assault rifle type weapon, this bolt action, the demonic crossbow. There's a thing that's like a stake driver that fires these massive, like, they're not big enough to be called logs, but they're getting close. And with any good weapon like that, they do stick enemies to walls if the enemy is big enough not to disintegrate on death. Which I'll always appreciate. Any weapon in a game that sticks an enemy to a wall that should stick an enemy to a wall, like, that's points from me. But yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to talk about with this one. Like I said, this one's going to be coming out late next year, hopefully, if their roadmap is to go along smoothly. But I would definitely recommend checking this one out. It is £30 on Steam, and some people might think that's a little bit steep for an early access game, but especially from the first couple of hours, I would have said that that would have been too high. But now that I've put more time into it, honestly, 30 seems about right. Honestly. 30 definitely seems about right, because there's a lot more content. There's a lot under the surface of this game. I thought it was going to be a relatively good playing game with not a lot of depth, but note that depth is in fact there, and I would recommend anyone who likes what they've seen here to go and seek it out. I think you'll like what you get. But yeah, thanks for watching. This has been my sort of initial impressions on Witchfire, and I'll see you later. Hi, I'm back, just to do a little sort of post-video talk here. Didn't want to put any of this at the beginning of the video because I felt like I would have slowed it down, you know. I wanted that really to be just get straight into the content sort of thing. But yeah, this was my first sort of structured, prepared YouTube video that wasn't a just live stream, re-upload VOD or something like that. And it was kind of like, I'd always wanted to do videos talking about video games because something I love. And I like these first impressions, like, you know, no scripting, just throw right in and show you what the game's all about from what I've played of it. So hopefully you liked it, and I'm very welcome to any feedback or criticism you have, because I would love to make it better. And I have a plan for 2 other series I would like to do alongside this one. This one, like I said, it's sort of focusing more on initial impressions, just sort of talking away at the game while I sort of play through a bit of it. And it's very much a first impressions. The other one, I haven't really decided on a name for it, but it's going to be very much like, very similar to this setup, but more so about older games. And when I say older games, I don't mean like retro style games. I just mean games that aren't coming out new release. And I want that to be a focus of going through a backlog, for example. So I was going to call it like backlog versus or something like that. And it's essentially just like I have a ton of games sitting in my backlog, and I'm sure so many other people have similar games sitting in their backlog as well. And I would just like to do something similar like this, where I just go through it and talk about it through like, you know, what it might be like to play in the current year. You know, modern sort of with modern eyes, sort of looking back at it. So like if, for example, I think the one that I'm going to upload first on it might be like Pillars of Eternity, because I've recently been playing that, and it might be like, here's how this game compares if you got into this genre with more modern introductions. So like if you play Baldur's Gate 3, or if you played the Pathfinder games, like what is it like going back to this game now? And, you know, maybe convincing you to jump onto that one in your backlog. Or if you've seen it on sale and, you know, you want to know if modern hardware has any trouble with these older games, like is one to happen sometimes. Like you'll play an older game and it'll just go like, your CPU has too many cores, I don't know what this is, and just crash, you know? Like if I find fixes and stuff for that, or, you know, that'd sort of be what that one would like to be. And then the other one is just a full review. So no first impressions type stuff, just a full comprehensive review of whatever I want to talk about. Again, that wouldn't be on any particular game, like new releases, older games, whatever. That would just be mainly focused toward games that I just find really interesting and really want to talk about more in depth. So the one I was thinking about starting with that is Final Fantasy 16, because I just played through that recently, and I have some conflicting opinions on that one. And that's usually what they say, is like when you make something like that, do it on something you're passionate about. And yeah, like I said, I have some feelings up and down toward that one, so I think I would like to do it for that. But yeah, again, thanks for watching, and I don't know if those will be out relatively soon, but I'm kind of working on them, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, if you like the video, just let me know, and let me know when I can do better. See ya.